down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo or photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, how we doing? It's Wednesday night and I'm Joe Edelman, your host for the next 90 minutes for all things photography and TogChat Live. Hey, as always, I'm going to do my best to help you develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. So as always, gang, please do me a solid. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. Twitter, Facebook, they're the fastest way to get the word out. You can go ahead and you can hit that share button. It's like right down there, okay? Or you can go ahead and you can share the link, and I'm going to type it here into the chat window for you. It is tog.chat/live, okay? So please let your friends know that we are here and we are streaming right now. And of course, check in. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're from. It is always cool to see where people are here from. I've got Duke here. I know Duke's in New Jersey. I've got Build Signal from Germany. Gosh, I got people like from everywhere here. Jean Edward is in the Netherlands. We've got Ryan in the UK, Susan in Canada, William in Virginia. I even got Lynn up in New York. We got people everywhere. So, hey, seriously, gang, thank you so much for being here on a Wednesday night. This is the one week until Photo Plus show. So I will tell you right out of the box, next Wednesday, you all get a night off from me. We will not have TogChat next Wednesday because I will be in New York setting up for Photo Plus. That doesn't, however, get you off the hook. You still got to do your shooting next week, okay? You got to pick up that camera and you got to shoot stuff. But let me tell you seriously, if there's any way that you can make it to New York, you want to make it to New York. Photo Plus, in fact, I'll put the link here in the window. Photo Plus is the largest photography trade show in the United States. And I'm excited. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a busy show for me this year. So Thursday morning, so that's Thursday the 25th, I'm going to be doing a photo walk. It's a natural light photo walk outside the Javits Center in that jungle we call New York. We'll have a model. We're going to do some cool fashion stuff. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 12:30 p.m. So that's like lunchtime. So eat your lunch early, hightail it to the Olympus booth, grab a seat because there's not a lot of seats. I'm going to be doing a 1-hour demo all 3 days. And I promise you, this is something that you have never seen before. I promise. You've seen people do similar techniques, but you've never seen it done the way that I am going to do it live on a stage. I've never published any images from this technique. All I will tell you is that there might be some light painting involved, but it's going to be pretty epic. We got some really, really cool stuff that's going to happen. And Friday afternoon, so that's Friday the 26th, or 25th, excuse me, Friday the 25th, I will be at 3 p.m., I will be at the Tether Tools booth. And I will be doing a quick walkthrough and demo of my tethering setup, talking a little bit about what my workflow is, why I use the specific gear that I do, but also how I use it in my workflow and how over the years, tethering has made my job easier. It has made my work so much better, and it's actually saved me a lot of money. So make sure that's Friday, 3 p.m. at the Tether Tools booth. I'll be there. And then 1 week later, for those of you that are out on the West Coast, because I saw there's some people here from Washington State and from California. If you can't make it here to the East Coast for Photo Plus, on November 2nd and 3rd, one of the biggest photography events that happens on the West Coast every year is an event that's sponsored by Kenmore Camera. They are in Seattle, but this event happens just north of Seattle in Lynnwood, Washington, and it's the 2019 Digital Photo Expo. So it's Saturday and Sunday. the 2nd and 3rd of November. I'm going to be speaking both days at, is it 2 or 2:30? I should know that, shouldn't I? Let me get the exact times here. And we'll get some like hardcore speakers that are going to be here. Art Wolf. If you are into like travel, wildlife, this guy is just, he's the bomb. Not only is he an amazing photographer, he's got his own television show. He's an awesome speaker. I have had the good fortune to see him speak, to present at events where he has been at before. Absolutely amazing. Nikon ambassadors, we've got Sony artisans, Fujifilm photographers, Lumix luminaries, even a Westcott ambassador, Manfrotto folks, Tamron tech reps, Nikon training specialists, Canon explorers of light. They're all there. Profoto. And yes, there's this guy named Joe Edelman who on Saturday the 2nd, I'm going to be doing bold fashion portraits with small lights, working with basically speed lights and pocket flashes. And then on Sunday the 3rd, same time slot, I'm going to be doing a different talk, which is lighting wizardry. Studio lighting is much easier than you think. And if you can't make one of those two, and you're stuck like in the southern part of the country, 1 week after that, so this is going to be Saturday, the 8th of Texas? Or 8th of Texas. Saturday, the 9th of November. How's that one? I'm going to be in Dallas, Texas at Competitive Camera. It's going to be a one-day event there. I'll be doing 2 talks. It's going to be beautiful portraits with simple lighting, and then another bold fashion portrait talk. So I hope to meet some of you folks. Definitely, if you can get to Photo Plus, that's really the big one. You want to make it there. You want to be at the Olympus booth every day. There's going to be opportunities to win Olympus gear. That's real important. Opportunities to meet me. And stay tuned because and make sure you follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Really, really important. I'll be doing some meet and greets during the Photo Plus and that, but I may also have a special surprise giveaway coming up. So fingers crossed if it all comes together. And I will be announcing that on social media, Instagram stories, and Facebook. So make sure you're following me there so that you don't miss out on that, right? Okay, so I know you're not here to hear me talk about what I'm going to do. You're here to get answers to questions. I've got a few questions lined up that came in early, so we'll start with those. For the rest of you, start typing, man. We got plenty of time for questions, so let's go ahead and get them in here. Let me switch the screen over. And, whoops, that was not the screen that I wanted. Let's try that one more time here. We'll do that. There's the screen that I wanted. So the first question that I had came in earlier today from Michael. What are the best techniques for using a 50mm for portrait or modeling shots for someone who is just starting out in that kind of photography? What tips are there for me to maximize my photography on entry-level equipment? All right, so, Michael, there's a lot to unpack in that little question, right? First of all, there is a very, very well-known entrepreneur / photographer by the name of Chase Jarvis. Chase Jarvis, a bunch of years back, came out with both a book and an iPhone app and a website. Basically, it's called Best Camera. Your best camera is the one that you have with you. Now, that's not a phrase that he created. It's a phrase that's been around for a while, but he certainly brought it to life in the digital era and really built a business on the back of that phrase. But so first of all, it is worth kind of just establishing best camera, best lens, best flash, best everything is what you have available, right? Because sure, it'd be nice if you go out and, just buy all the coolest, biggest equipment in the world, but that's not actually going to make your photography better. So the fact that you are starting out with entry-level equipment and you only have a 50, that's not bad. Now, what I don't know from your question, Michael, is I don't know if you are working with micro four thirds like I do, or if you're an APS-C shooter or a full frame shooter. So I'm going to give you some generic stuff, right? For portraits, basically the biggest thing is just try not to get too close. And when I say too close, I mean like right there, okay? The reason being 50mm is just a little on the short side. It's not too short, but it's a little on the short side. So now if you're working with a micro four thirds camera like myself, my go-to portrait lens is a 45mm, which means it's great because it has kind of the full frame equivalent of 90mm in focal length. If you're an APS-C guy, that makes it approximately a 75mm. So it's, still pretty good. Your 50mm, that is. It's still, that's a good short telephoto kind of focal length. But indeed, if you're a full frame shooter with a 50mm, it's a 50 millimeter, which means that if you get too close, you're going to start to kind of bow the face a little bit, maybe make the person's nose a little bit bigger. So you just don't want to get super close. If you're doing modeling shots, especially full-length ones, probably the biggest mistake that I see newbies make is, so we'll use me as an example, okay? I had a model in my studio today who was 5'8". She's the same height as I am. So I'm a short guy, I'm 5'8". So if I back up 10 feet with that 50 millimeter lens and I take a full-length picture of her, this would be the model, this would be me, but I would have to tilt my camera down in order to get all of her body in the shot, right? So it's not like I'm going to keep my camera aimed straight ahead because I'll wind up cropping her off like at the ankles. So that being said, if I just tilt the camera down, which it's easier for me because I don't have to bend my knees, I don't have to get down on the ground, none of that stuff. But if I do that, then my camera is looking down on her body, which is going to have the effect of shortening her body. It's kind of a compression thing. So for a modeling shot with that 50 millimeter, what you want to do is, if this is your subject, you want to have your camera at about the midpoint of your subject's body. That way, your digital sensor, or film plane, as they said back in the film days, and your subject are parallel. There's no compression, and there's no keystoning where you're elongating them. Now, let's go one more. If you want to make your subject look a little bit taller, well, then you've got your subject. You want to get your camera lower, maybe like at knee level. That way you're going to have to tilt it up a little bit. That is going to elongate the legs and the torso and make your subject look a little taller. Depending on your lens, depending on how close you are to the subject, depending on how tall your subject actually is, there is such a thing as getting way too low, because then when you tilt up, you're going to make the person look like a really stretched out Gumby type of figure. Those of you that are my age know who the heck Gumby is. You youngins, sorry. Anyway, so honestly, that would be the first thing I would tell you. And from there, Michael, if you're just starting, the other honest piece is don't overthink it. Just pick up the camera and start shooting. Instead of worrying about what shouldn't I do wrong, you should just worry about shooting. Take the time to look through your pictures, especially the bad pictures. We all make this mistake, gang, and it's really worth noting, and it's really worth remembering. I do it too. We're all guilty of it. We go out, we shoot a bunch of pictures, we find a couple shots that we like, and then boom, we process those, we do whatever retouching we're going to do, and we put them up on the internet. It's like, yeah, look at this. We did great stuff. And then what we either wind up doing is we just file away all the bad stuff or even delete it. Like, I don't keep my bad stuff. I edit my shoots down, and I only keep a small selection from a shoot. But I don't take a lot of time to go back through the shots that I didn't use. But we should. I should. Everybody should. Because that's where the real learning is. It's to go back through those shots and look at them and answer a simple question. Why? Why do I not like it? What could I or should I have done differently? What would have made a difference in this shot to make it a great shot, right? So ultimately, to start with, Michael, that would be my advice. Remember those two simple things, and then really just take pictures at this stage of the game. Shoot lots of pictures, okay? All right, next one here from Jeannie. Let me get this one turned on. There we go. What is the easiest, that's a bad word in photography, what is the easiest intro-level OCF, off-camera flash, and trigger to learn on? All right, so first of all, Jeannie, why did I say easiest is a bad word? Well, easy is usually the quickest path when a person is lazy. Lazy is not the way to get good, just not. So I'm not implying that you're lazy. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that that was just maybe a poor choice of word, okay? But here's what I really, really would consider, Jeannie, and which is a little different than what you're asking me. So this is one of those times where the teacher or the mentor needs to give a slightly different answer than what the student is looking for, because I really do believe that this answer will be more productive and more helpful to you, okay? So here's what I would recommend. Instead of asking somebody what's the simplest intro level flash, because I understand what you want to do. You probably haven't used Flash before. You want to be able to buy the Flash, put it on the camera, and pretty much be up and running and take some decent pictures, and then kind of backfill and learn more along the way. I don't blame you for that. I'm guilty of doing similar things. I have to tell you honestly, though, unfortunately, those similar things, when I did them, didn't really help me out. I didn't really learn what I wanted to learn. So here's the advice that I give everyone regarding Flash units, whether it be speedlights, strobes, I don't care what you're using. Do your research. Do your learning. This is a good topic to spend a little bit of time on YouTube and get a sense of what are your options. Maybe spend some time on Amazon, or depending on where you live, Jeannie, if you're like in the Northeast and you're near, somebody like Hunt's, or if you're in Dallas and you're near Competitive, or if you're out on the West Coast like Berkeley, Looking Glass Camera, or Washington, Kenmore, any of these camera retailers, North Carolina, Biggs, okay? They all have websites with lots of equipment on them. Start doing some research. Better yet, if you have a local camera store, walk into that camera store and talk to the salespeople. But don't ask the question, what is easiest? What you want to know is what's best. Now, I don't mean what's the best brand. There is no such thing. There really isn't. You can't buy a bad Flash unit. It's kind of like, next week, I'm going to be at Photo Plus in New York. Every camera manufacturer is going to be there. Every camera that's currently made today will be represented at that trade show. So what does that mean? That means that you will not be able to find a bad camera in the building. Not one. By any brand. Even Sony. None. But what you will find? You'll find a lot of bad photographers. Just saying. Don't hate me. It's how it is, right? So you don't want to be asking what's the easiest. And when I say what's the best, what I mean is, what is the best for your needs? So the things that you haven't told me, Jeannie, is what kind of photography do you do or want to do? What is it you're trying to light? Why do you think you need a flash in the first place? And why do you think you need it to be off camera? Just taking a flash off camera is not necessarily going to give you good light. In fact, it's just going to give you really harsh light in a different location with a different angle and a different set of shadows. Probably less flattering shadows than if you had the flash on camera. So my advice is you do a little bit of learning about flash units, the different types of flash units there are, and you get a sense of what brand that you like based on that brand's features and its capabilities. So I'm a Godox user. I love the Godox system because you can take everything from a Godox speedlight all the way up to a 600 watt second Godox flash and work them all in the same controller. They all work in unison, which is just amazing. They're very reasonably priced. They're very good quality. They don't cost $1,000 a head. Boom, done. But honestly, start there. And then on paper, Jeannie, the other thing that I encourage people to do is you want to go through and you want to figure out, well, in a perfect world where money was not an issue, what is the system that I want? Meaning, how many flashes? Are you going to work with 2 flashes? Are you going to work with 3, 4, whatever? What modifiers? What stands? Put this all together on paper. That way, you have a target. Do not, under any circumstances, even if you win the lottery next week, don't go and buy the whole system. Because all you'll do is make it 10 times harder to learn. You just go out, once you've spec'd out this whole system on paper, you go out and you buy, like you asked me, 1 flash, 1 trigger, buy a stand because you're going to put it off camera, and probably some kind of a modifier. I would encourage you to start with a shoot-through umbrella. And then learn how to use that one light off camera. And don't worry about being easy. If it takes a little more work to learn it, then learn it, because that little more work is going to pay you big dividends in being able to use this flash that better suits your needs. If you buy something easy and cheap to get into lighting, you're going to find out that it doesn't meet your needs very, very quickly, and you're going to wind up having to relearn a flash system all over again, and you're going to realize that you never really learned the lighting stuff properly in the first place because you bought subpar equipment that didn't have the features and the capabilities that you wanted in the first place, right? So trust me, I understand wanting it easy, and I understand wanting it quick, and I understand wanting it simple. But unfortunately, easy, quick, and simple does not generate to consistently good photography. And easy, quick, and simple doesn't give you the foundational knowledge that you need to be able to consistently create good images, right? Just doesn't. So I would encourage you, kind of dial that back a little bit and do a little bit of research. That I honestly think it will pay off for you. I really do. Okay? All right, another one that came in early here. This one is from Terrence. I got to meet Terrence out in Cleveland for the Pixel Photo Fest. So Terrence is asking the creative process. Specifically, what do you do to start yours so that we might use some of your methods or triggers to be able to better access the creative parts of our brains? So Terrence, the answer that I like to give people just to kind of freak them out when they ask me that question. So if you were asking me in person, I would have just looked at you dead seriously and said drugs. I've never taken drugs in my life, short of like, a caffeine pill and aspirin and prescription stuff. There's a lot of things. I think it's a little bit different for everyone. I am maybe kind of old school and tough in this thought process, but I see lots and lots of articles online these days about, how to ignite your creativity, how to enhance your creativity, how to get out of a creative rut, yada, 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 yada. Look, I'm not going to lie to you guys. You know that I am a cheerleader in wanting to make you all better and to motivate you to do better work and to learn more and to be more creative. But when it comes to all the idea of where does the motivation come from, I'm a big believer that if that motivation is not a burning desire inside you, then maybe you're spending your time doing the wrong stuff. And I mean, maybe photography is not your creative outlet. Just being real. But that being said, I will tell you, Terrence, that to develop the habit of looking for ideas and finding ideas and coming up with things, it's a lot of hard work just to develop that habit, because it's about creating an awareness. You have to always be looking. You have to always be mindful of something that's in front of you that's like, ooh, that could be a really cool thing. So, and the worst part is, full disclosure, folks, I'll be completely honest. I'm sitting here in my studio right now. The last couple days, I've been practicing some things for Photo Plus next week because, as I told you, if you get to come to Photo Plus, you're going to see me do some stuff you've never seen done before. And the ideas from it, and I'll be perfectly honest, the only reason I'm not going to tell you right now is because it really has not been done before. And so if I tell you folks about it, somebody will be running off tomorrow and trying it and putting it on Instagram and Facebook before I get to New York and do it. So I'm going to keep it a little close to the chest. I promise you, I will share it with all of you. You will get to see, the photos, and you will get to learn how I did them. If you're not at Photo Plus, you will find out very quickly after Photo Plus. You have my word. And I will tell you that it involves a little bit of light painting. I've been hinting at that, right? But one of the ideas for this, Terrence, literally came while I was visiting my grandson. And I walked down into my son's basement to get a can of soda out of the refrigerator. And my son and my daughter-in-law have started a little side business making candles and kind of like concrete napkin holders and candle holders and things like that. And they had a project they were working on to create bowls out of concrete. And I walked past the table and saw this stuff sitting there and saw how they were shaping the bowls. And it's like, oh my God, I could put a light in that thing, not the bowl, but the thing they were using to shape it. And then I could do something really cool with that. So it's kind of, always being on the lookout. I see that Psychophil, great handles. Psychophil here just added the idea, ABC, always be composing. And so, yeah, I mean, it's always be composing, it's always being looking. You guys have heard me talk about walking my dogs. And even though I don't take a camera, when I walk my dogs, I'm always looking for photos. I'm always, and it's the kind of photos I don't normally take. You know, I'm looking at insects on trees and leaves on the ground and you know, light and shadows. And it's really just about keeping the mind going and always looking. But other things, Terrence, it can be as simple. Now, I want you guys to follow along closely here, because if you only listen to the first part of what I'm about to say, it's going to be really, really bad advice. So please listen to all of it, and please don't be lazy. There is nothing wrong. In fact, I strongly encourage all of you, go to websites like Pinterest, go to websites like Instagram, and spend some time surfing and look for ideas. Look for ideas that you can do one of two things with. Look for an idea that you can copy. I said the word copy, but don't walk away. I'm not done with the statement. Look for an idea that you can copy for the purpose of teaching yourself problem solving, teaching yourself how to do a technique, how to accomplish a technique. Now, once you have managed to copy that technique, do not, please, do not be the photographer that posts it online. Don't even be the photographer that posts it online and says, I tried to copy this picture. Look, I'm proud of what I did. No, there's nothing to be publicly proud of there. Once you have copied it, pat yourself on the back. Go have a beer. Eat some food, do whatever, but then go back, pick up the camera, take that technique that you've just learned, that you have just problem solved your way through, and now find a way to make it your own. Because once you have copied that image, what you've done actually is not copy the image. What you've actually done is you have just created a new tool in your mental toolkit as a photographer. So now your challenge is to go ahead and use that new tool in a creative way with your work. Terrence, when I met you in St. Louis and we went down with the model to that church, you had a very specific idea in your mind. Now, of course, the challenge was that day, you know, we had limited amount of time, 2 other photographers. You had this real pain in the butt mentor that went along, okay? But the whole idea is about problem solving, right? It's about, okay, I've got this concept. I want to see if I can get this concept to work, and then I kind of want to make it my own. And I know full well, Terrence, that day I kind of wound up dragging you in a slightly different direction because I thought there were other opportunities there. So on one hand, I taught you some other things. On the other hand, I didn't help you with the idea that you really wanted to do, okay? But that's really what it comes down to is always be looking for things. And I constantly, gang, I will be on Pinterest and I'll see something in fact here. We'll see if I can even find something here. I've got to be careful because of course I don't own copyright to these. But there was a picture recently that I stumbled on. And it can be any number of things about the picture. So actually, yeah, here's a shot. This was somewhere on the web where somebody was doing some shutter drag and some blur. So that's obviously not my picture, right? So, and again, I can't tell you exactly what it is I'm doing at Photo Plus. It's not shutter drag at all. But when I saw this, I realized, ooh, with the technique that I'm using, I could do something with kind of a similar feel. So this was a way for me to kind of remember, oh, I want to make sure I try that while I'm in the studio doing my practice shots. Because when you go on a stage to present, you know, in front of a ton of people, you kind of need the pictures to work because you don't get to spend hours, you know, problem solving and fumbling through things. So most of the shots that I'll be doing, conceptually, I will have planned it out and tried it. It will be a unique picture that day in that moment, but you know, I will have a fairly high confidence level that what I'm about to set up and do will work, because these shots that I'm creating in real time in front of, you know, a lot of people, there's actually a lot of moving parts to make it all come together. There's a lot of things that have to happen at once. So it's not just a simple portrait. But Terrence, really, I think that I would focus on the triggers. The method for me is always be looking. So, you know, to use Psycho Phil's, you know, always be composing, For me, it's ABL, always be looking. That's just another way of saying it, okay? So yeah, I think that's, it's a great phrase, a great term. If you can teach yourself to, always be looking for ideas, always be looking at things to say, is there an idea here? You're going to find out that it becomes easier and easier and easier. And actually, it's hard to get away from it. If I go on vacation with my wife, or I take a day off and we go to the mall, or we got to dinner, I'm sitting at the table while I'm waiting for the waiter, and I'm like looking at my bottle of Coke, like, oh wow, like look at the way the light's bouncing off that. That would be so cool if I had it just becomes habit. It becomes something that you do all the time. I had a young woman here in my studio today, a makeup artist that I was doing a test shoot with, and she brought in a couple of shots that she wanted to replicate. And I'm not going to be able to bring it up. And again, I really can't, unfortunately, show you the picture because I don't own the picture. It's not copyrighted. But she brought in this black and white shot of a model who had her eyes closed because she had really, really long eyelashes on. And she had kind of fingers up by the eyes on, one side. And it was black and white. And the eyelashes were dramatic. And this girl, the makeup artist, she loved this picture. And she wanted to kind of recreate the picture. So, I explained to her, it's like, well, I won't do the exact same thing because that's just copying. But I liked the concept of what they were doing, and I liked the fact that it was very high key and contrasty and black and white. We do that. And we were looking at this picture on the computer screen, and she's telling me, oh my God, and I love those eyelashes and the way they are. I said, I have to be honest with you. I said, in New York, like in the fashion world, in the advertising world, at the top of the heap, this picture would be thrown away. They would not use it. It would be rejected. And she looked at me almost like I had offended her. I'm like, no. I said, you're missing something really obvious. And what was obvious to me, because I've taught myself to pay attention to details, and Terrence, I know you were at my keynote talk in Cleveland where I talked a lot about this detail stuff. The eyelashes that the model had, so again, she had her eyes closed, but the eyelashes on one eye curled up. The eyelashes on the other eye went straight down. So the eyes were, and believe me, it was not intentional. They just weren't curled properly. So the eyelashes were uneven. It's one of those things that 10 people might look at the photo and one person will notice it. But once you have noticed it, you can't not notice it. It's the first thing you see when you look at the picture. So literally after I showed this to this girl, she was like, oh my God. She's like, I've been wanting to do this picture for ages. Thinking this was like the most amazing picture I've ever seen, and I never noticed that the eyelashes were uneven. So, that's kind of the other benefit that will happen with you always be composing and always be looking is you're also teaching yourself to pay attention to details. And it can be simple things. It's like, making sure that you're not going to do that picture with a hairband on the girl's wrist, making sure you're not going to do that picture with the straps twisted, that kind of stuff. So, for me, Terrence, that would be my recommendation. Is just, it's really kind of about establishing habits more than anything else. Okay. All right. Next question I've got here, Kevin. How to find model shoot workshops that are more than let's get together and take pictures of naked or mostly naked girls. So, here's the challenge, Kevin. What you're describing is not what I describe. Or Eric, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really, I appreciate it. Thank you. What you're describing is not what I would call a workshop. Now, I realize a lot of people market that as a workshop and say, yeah, we're having this modeling workshop, come and shoot and, yada, yada, yada. But here's why I don't describe that as a workshop. Number one, because you're not really learning anything, right? You're going to go into somebody's studio or you're going to go out to some park, whatever, and they're going to have, a bunch of girls, as you described. Somebody's going to set up some lights. You don't get to change the lighting, whatever. And then, 10 people are going to stand around and stare at this naked chick and take pictures one at a time. There's no learning. And there's honestly no value to that, Kevin. There's no value because it's not even like you're going to be able to get portfolio images. While the pictures that you take that day may be the best pictures you've ever taken, there's going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 other people with essentially the same stuff. And even if they shot from different angles, Todd, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I appreciate it, sincerely. Even if these people shoot from different angles, they're still photographing the same girl with the same makeup, same tattoos, same whatever. So where's the benefit? There's no benefit. I mean, what you have to understand, Kevin, those kind of events, the only benefit to them, they're social events. And as long as you go with that understanding, then awesome. I mean, social events are cool, right? But I would encourage you, stop being so lazy. Honestly, that's my advice. And what do I mean by that? I mean, go find your own model. Even if you have to rent a studio space, if that's what you want to do, rent a studio space. It's still going to be, renting that studio space will still be cheaper than a real workshop. A real workshop, not a shootout, but a real workshop. Rent a studio space, bring the model in, where you have complete control. You're going to plan the shoot. You're going to plan the outfits or lack of outfits. You're going to set up the lighting. You're going to do it all. And then you're going to problem solve, and you're going to figure out how to make it better, and you're going to shoot. You're going to learn how to direct the model, because you don't learn how to direct the model at those events. Group shoots are for amateurs. Group shoots are for people that want to have fun. Group shoots are for people that have no sincere interest. I don't care what they say. I care what their behavior is. Group shoots are for people with no sincere interest in actually improving the quality of their photography. I stand by those words. You can quote me. It's just how it is. It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. And, to add to that, there is a boat ton of science about how humans learn that confirms that's just a horrible learning environment, period. It just is. Okay? All right, last one I had from early on, and then we'll get into the stuff that's in the chat feed right now. This one comes from Franciscus. Will using a speed booster always diminish sharpness versus using the same lens with an adapter? I don't know that I would use the word always, Franciscus. So first of all, full disclosure, I hate adapters, right? You guys have heard me talk about that a lot. I'm not a big fan of adapters. That's because, also full disclosure, coming up as a kid learning photography, I'm old enough, I was a photographer before there were zoom lenses. I'm old enough, I was a photographer before there was autofocus. I'm old enough that Sigma lenses, Tamron lenses, Tokina lenses all sucked. I am old enough that using adapters, guaranteed crap results. All that's changed. Hardcore, right? So let's be clear. Let's start with brands. Sigma, Tamron, Tokina, great lenses. You guys know I was a huge fan of the Tokina 100mm, okay? Technology's come a long way, and even at this point, companies like Sigma and Tokina, Sigma and Tamron, and who knows, maybe Tokina, there's a lot of information that says that they actually manufacture lenses for some of the camera manufacturers, right? So the world's come a long way there. Plus we have autofocus, plus we have all these other features. Adapters have also gotten much better. Let's face it, if adapters weren't so much better today, Sony would not be Sony. Nobody would have bought Sony. Because when Sony first started with their great full-frame mirrorless cameras, they had like 4 lenses. So you pretty much had to go out and get Canon lenses, right? And people were taking great pictures. If the quality wasn't there, people would not have continued buying the cameras, right? That's just simple fact. So that being said, Francisco, I don't know about the always aspect. I can tell you this, right? If you are a pixel peeper, if we are going to bench shoot, test, plates and bench test everything, not using an adapter is always going to be better than using an adapter, right? There's always going to be a certain degree of offset, quality loss happening. Potentially speed boosters would create even more of a quality loss. But the average photograph, we're not bench testing it, right? It's not going to be viewed to those kind of specifications, in part because the human eye is not capable of seeing those kind of specifications. So you kind of have to be very practical in that sense. I know a lot of photographers that are doing brilliant work that are working with speed boosters, that are working with adapters, and they're getting great results, right? So, I think indeed a piece of it is the brand, et cetera, that you buy. You want to do a little bit of research to make sure that the brand speed booster you're purchasing is known for working well with the brand of lenses that you're going to put it on, that there's not any known issues, etc. But I don't think that you're ultimately going to have too much of a problem at this point, unless you're a pixel peeper. And if you're a pixel peeper, then yes, I would definitely, I would stay away from speed boosters, adapters, all that kind of stuff. Okay? All right, so keep those questions coming. I am back into the chat wall here. I'm sorry, I just saw a question that like just completely caught me off guard. So I'm actually gonna take the very last question and I'll go back to the beginning because I was like, wait, what is this? So this is from Troy. How do you protect yourself from being sued by tattoo artists who claim they own the copyright to the tattoo on your model? Apparently that's a thing now. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't doubt that it's a thing, Troy, because if a tattoo artist designs the artwork, right? Now, I'm not an attorney, so let's be clear. Number one, do not take your legal advice from some guy on YouTube, please, okay? Even if he says he's an attorney, don't do it. But here would be my understanding of how that would all work, Troy. This tattoo that I have on my arm, that one, or better yet, my Olympus tattoo, right? If anybody were to be able to sue me over that tattoo, it would not be the tattoo artist. It would be Olympus because they own that copyright. This particular piece of artwork that's on my arm, which is like an aperture with a frame, I designed that. And I took the graphic to the tattoo artist. So the tattoo artist that did it holds no copyright over it whatsoever. So they can't make any claims, they can't sue me, can't do a damn thing. I created this. He was the technician who transferred this piece of art onto my arm. Now, if it is a piece of art where that tattoo artist created it and did the tattoo work, then in theory, yes, it's their artwork, okay? The way you protect yourself, if you're that worried about it, is you ask the subject that you were photographing if they have a release from the tattoo artist. And if you're worried about it, notice I keep saying if you're worried about it, then you don't photograph that person if they don't have a release, because you are smart enough to understand that if that tattoo artist created that image, I don't mean applied it, I mean created it, then indeed they own the copyright. Just like when you go click, you own the copyright. So if you think about it, like you're kind of asking a question that you actually ought to know the answer to in terms of the ownership pieces. Now, how do you handle it? I just told you, go get permission. If you're worried about it, go get permission. But here's the thing, right? Better yet, why not be a little proactive? So let's say a model comes into your studio or gets in front of your camera. She's got this really cool sleeve. It's an amazing piece of artwork. And you photograph it. And you do the picture specifically to show off that artwork. Why not ask the model who did the art, get that artist's IG handle or website address, and why not tag them in the social media post? Do you really think for a second that that tattoo artist is going to be pissed off and going to sue you? No, they're not. More than likely or not, and I'm sure somewhere on one of the photo blogs there's probably an article that I've missed. More likely than not, where a lawsuit has come into play is that a photographer has photographed artwork on a model and then turned around and sold that image. And the artist is looking for a piece of it. And you know, the reality of it is we live in a very litigious world. I mean, that kind of stuff happens, and it happens all the time. You know, last week you guys gave me a lot of grief because I mentioned that I'm not a big fan of classic rock, that I'd rather listen to Ariana Grande and Lizzo. I was reading an article this morning. Lizzo is being sued by two songwriters who claim that she stole one of the most, key lines in a song that she has. It's the one where, I just took a DNA test and I'm 100% that bitch, okay? So turns out these guys had that line in another song. And they were working with her on the song, but in the end, she just took that line out of the song and put it in a new song. But Even before that, they all got that line from a meme that another songwriter had posted on Twitter. So now there's like this three-way lawsuit going on all over like one little quote, okay? You know, origins are origins, right? They just are. So if somebody created it and you're able to prove it, then it's yours. But the other thing you also have to understand with the being sued part, if that tattoo artist didn't file a copyright on the artwork, they don't have a whole lot of legroom to sue you other than to stop you from using or selling the image. But to sue for damages, that's why we have copyrights in the first place, and that's why you file copyrights, is to be able to collect damages. Without filing that copyright, it is extremely challenging to get damages. So, okay? Hope that helps. But yeah, I sorry, when that question came through, I was like, what's this with the tattoos? Okay. So, this is a two-part question. And George, let me just scroll through to see if I got a response from George, because I don't think he gave me a response. I asked him a follow-up question to it. Yeah, I have a feeling he asked the question and ran. But, hi, Joe, a very well-known photographer, so that's always dubious in the first place, right? Told me that I shouldn't use higher than 135 millimeter for portraits because the faces look bloated. And then part two, I've been using a telephoto with 200 millimeter at f5.6 to have enough depth of field and blur the background. Is he right? Am I doing it wrong? Well, George, first of all, you're confused. You just are. So second of all, you know, if I'm going to have to disagree with or insult a well-known photographer, I'd like to know who it is I'm insulting. I just would. So in the future, you know, give me a name here, right? Okay. But because of the way I'm reading this, George, I actually have a feeling that you're also misunderstanding some of the technical stuff in the language. So I think what you mean to say is that he was saying that you shouldn't use a lens shorter than 135 millimeter for portraits because the faces will look bloated. That is a statement that is grossly incorrect. But let's also be clear, and this is not to change my statement, it's grossly incorrect. Depending upon the frame size, the format size of your camera, meaning micro four thirds, APS-C, or full frame, that's going to change the discussion around focal lengths a little bit. Also, I will tell you that depending upon the format of your camera, a 200 millimeter for portraits, like, dude, you're standing across the room. What are you yelling at your subject? Like, tilt your head just a little bit to the right. Like, come on. I mean, 200 millimeter is a ridiculous focal length, period. It's like these idiots on YouTube, who I will not name names, that go out there with 300 and 600 millimeter lenses and do portrait challenges. Like, why? Who does that? What is the sense behind that? There's no sense behind that. There are 3 different controls for depth of field. And if you guys follow me, you know that I always say there's actually 4. So if you want bokeh in the background, George, there are other ways to get it. Right? There just are. The fact that you're shooting at 5.6 right out of the box says, well, go to a wider aperture and you'll have more shallow depth of field. But I have a feeling, but I don't think you're still here. I have a feeling you're going to tell me, well, if I go wider than 5.6, then I can't keep my subject in focus. Well, that's in part because you're using too long a lens in the first place. If you go to a shorter lens, you won't have that problem. Ideally for portraits, and George, this is the common consensus amongst the photography world. So I'm not speaking out on my own here. Short to medium length telephoto lenses are ideally suited for portraiture work. If you're a full frame shooter, shoot with an 85, maybe a 105. 135, you can do it, but I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of long. 200, way too freaking long. It's just no point. Because then you're also introducing the potential of camera shake, even if you have image stabilization. Like, why? And that's a whole nother debate, because photographers rely way too much on image stabilization today. Way too much. Yes, I'm an old guy. I learned photography when there was no such thing as image stabilization. So to me, it's just, you know, yeah, it's a nice feature, but it's not something that you should be relying on for all of your photos. That's sloppy photography. Image stabilization should be a feature that you use as an exception to the rule if you want to take consistently great photographs. Just saying. Okay? All right, so let's get back up here to the beginning. Scrolling down here. Don, I'm a Pentaxian from Yakima, checking in. Can I count my photography or work towards my homework for watching TogChat? You know, Don, normally I would say yes. But the fact that you're a Pentaxian, I don't know, man. That's a tough call. I'll make a deal. In, what, 3 weeks? A little less than 3 weeks. I'm going to be in Seattle at Linwood for the Kenmore Photo Expo. So if you promise to make it to Kenmore to say hi and see my talk, I'll let you off the hook, okay? All right, so scrolling down here. How get people here from everywhere? Australia is so cool. Thank you all again. All right, so here we go. From Alvin. I know I shouldn't listen to any YouTuber about buying a camera. That's right, you shouldn't. Exactly. But I'm sold on Olympus Micro Four Thirds system. Gavin Hoey even shared the love of Micro Four Thirds. He did. Is there more to it, or was that just a statement? Oh, that's just a statement. Well, good for you. Yeah. Alvin, as I've explained on here many, many times, Gavin actually was a big part of my decision to go ahead and make the switch. I met Gavin at Photo Plus 2 years ago? I guess it was, well, no, it would have been 3 years ago now. Wow. Time flies, man. But anyway, at that time, I was in the process of kind of working through, am I going to change? Am I not going to change? I had played around, you know, with the EM1 Mark II. I had rented it a couple times. I just kept going back and forth. I wasn't really ready to cut that cord and do it. And I had a chance to talk to Gavin for a little while and also watch his presentation. He was very, very helpful, and that was a big piece of it. So trust me, I'm pretty sure that Gavin has been, involved in getting a lot of people to, to make that switch. So he's a great guy, amazing photographer. So yeah. Let's see here. John Noakes. I found your channel on episode 150. I've gone back and started watching from episode 1. Oh my God, really? John, please, no. I appreciate how your overall message has not changed. You give the same answer to the same questions. Yeah, man, I mean, photography hasn't changed. That's the irony of it, right? Underneath all of this, Sony, Nikon, Pentax, mirrorless, HSS, image stabilization, yada, yada, yada. Photography is photography. Aim the camera, press the damn button, and take a good picture, right? Photography is photography. So I'm not the gear guy. I focus on the process of actually taking the picture. You go figure out your gear elsewhere. Don't bother me with that, right? If you got questions about Olympus, of course, I'm an Olympus ambassador. I'll gladly help you out. And the other cameras, I can tell you a little bit, but I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on them. For me, the problem I have, I said this earlier, next week, Photo Plus. There's going to be a trade show full of amazing cameras. There will not be a bad camera in that hall, but there will be a lot of really bad photographers. I'm trying to get a hold of people once they've got their cameras, once they've made their decisions, and I'm trying to help them with the actual photography and encourage them to actually focus more on the photography than the camera. So, John, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Scrolling on down. So, Hobby Calvo. What is the difference of having a defined style in photography and doing all the time the same photos? And then he goes on to say, wait, there's a second one here. I mean, every photographer is recognized by his style, but I asked myself about the thin line between personal or getting repetitive. So that's a really good question, Javi. So, I think that there's maybe a couple more layers to that thought process that you're bringing up. Some people get repetitive, not out of style, but out of laziness, right? They find something that works, so they do it all the time. It's lazy. It's easy, right? But at the same time, I think that for a lot of new/young, and we'll use those two words interchangeably, right? New and young. For a lot of new and young photographers, I think that they put way too much emphasis on style because they think that they need to define their style. You know, I would argue that you don't get to define your style as a photographer. And I've said this many, many times. I will still say this. I get to define my style, clothing, you know, what I wear, all that kind of stuff. That's a choice that I make. This is how I want to dress. Boom, that's what I do. Earrings, tattoos, whatever. Photography, since we're talking about creativity, going back to some of what I talked about earlier in the show tonight with Terrence and his question about where do you find your creative motivation, right? So much of the way that you are creative, or that the next person is creative, or the next woman is creative, or whomever, is a matter of genetic predisposition. So we don't have quite as much control over our creativity as we think we do. I'll give you a good example. Everybody has a color that they hate. You know, women especially, but even guys. You all have a color that you will not wear. You would not be caught dead in that color. So you won't buy it, you won't wear it. But yet, if you would actually put something on with that color and go and meet with a friend, or better yet, a couple of friends, odds are good that at least half the friends that you meet with would compliment you and tell you that you look great in that color, even though you're like, oh my God, this is hideous. So how does that happen? Well, it happens because you're actually genetically predisposed to like and dislike certain colors. Not specific colors, but ranges. And I'm running this through my mind and I can't remember which side it is, so my wife will be really upset at me. This is a cognitive psychology thing, but it has to do with your eyesight. If you are nearsighted or farsighted, it is easier or harder for your eyes to process colors at different ends of the spectrum. So the end of the spectrum that is harder, you tend to dislike those colors. For the end of the spectrum that is easier, you tend to like those colors. That's a genetic predisposition. It's not entirely just a matter of your taste saying, I like that color. No, okay? Part of the reason you dislike certain colors is because of your eyesight. So there's a lot of things like that. So, I mean, I guess ultimately, Javi, I know I jumped around a lot there. I feel bad because I don't feel like I've actually given you something solid. If I had to give you advice based on your question, the advice would be, don't worry about style. Your style will come. I have a video. It's one of my older videos. It's in fact here. Let me dig this up here, and I will share the link for you. And I talk a lot about style, finding a style, and I will tell you that I would not put effort into it. I really wouldn't. The fact of the matter is, if you shoot enough, if you shoot consistently, if you work hard to develop your skills, you will find that your style will show up, okay? So this video, let me grab it right there. It's called 10 Tips to Find Your Photographic Style. Is it important to have a style? So I would encourage you, Javi, check that video out. I think that might help you a little bit, but honestly, I would tell you, don't kill yourself, like literally, okay? Todd Strong, testing Olympus until October 31st. Good for you, man. Let me know what you think. So Robert Armstrong, just switched to Olympus. What are your thoughts to using Panasonic lenses on your Olympus OMD EM1 II? Robert, a lot of people do. I wouldn't. Now, let's be clear. I wouldn't for two reasons. You're all going to jump to the conclusion, well, he's an Olympus Visionary. Why would he do that? Of course, that's reason number two, actually. Reason number one, I'm old school. That's it. I prefer to use the lenses that were manufactured and engineered for that camera brand. Now, the Micro Four Thirds Consortium softens that attitude a little bit. When I was using Panasonic cameras for my videos here, for my live stream and my YouTube videos, I actually had Olympus lenses on them. And that was long before I considered making any switches. And initially, the reason why I bought the Olympus lenses, full disclosure, I initially bought the Olympus lenses over the Panasonic ones because they were less expensive. And I loved the sharpness on them. They were great, but they were less expensive, so that's why I bought them initially. At this stage of the game, obviously being an Olympus ambassador, I certainly wouldn't consider using them. But the great thing about the Micro Four Thirds format is that it's designed that the lenses are interchangeable. There are some lenses that have specialized features that, if it's made for Panasonic, that specialized feature won't work on an Olympus, and vice versa. But can you do it? Yeah, sure, absolutely. I will tell you this, and I mean this sincerely. This has got nothing to do with being an ambassador. Robert, I don't think that you will find a sharper set of lenses than the M.Zuiko lenses. I sincerely don't. They blow me away every day. They continue to blow me away. Even today shooting, I'm not going to lie. Like every time I go to a computer screen when I'm tethering, I look at my images, it's a reminder just how amazing the technology is with such a small sensor that I am using on my cameras, because the sharpness and the detail is just, it's off the charts. But you can do it. Yeah, okay. Jubril, I hope I'm saying that right. What is the best way to make an environmental portrait? Proper lighting for the room and the subject with a flash and a full frame camera. So, okay, as far as the full frame camera thing, come on, man. No, okay? You can do it with an iPhone if you want. Camera's a camera. Please, a camera is a camera. Full frame cameras do not make your pictures better. In fact, full frame cameras make your mistakes look worse. That's a fact. Straight up, period. If you don't know what you're doing, full frame camera just makes it more obvious that you don't know what the hell you're doing. Done. So let's leave that out of the equation, right? But if you're making an environmental portrait, proper lighting for the room and the subject with a flash, Jubril, it sounds like you're kind of new to this photography thing with that question. There's a million ways to do environmental portraits. I mean, honestly, one of the things that I would encourage you to do, and in fact, here, we can probably do this as long as I don't make them really big. Let me set this up on the screen here, real quick here. We're going to do a Google experiment, okay? So here, I'm going to switch my screen over. So I did a search on Google for environmental portrait. And actually, what's it say? An environmental portrait is a portrait executed in the subject's usual environment. That's deep, isn't it, right? Such as in their home or workplace, and typically illuminates the subject's life and surroundings. I don't think they mean the lighting in that, right? But here's what I want to do. Let's click on the Images tab. And so what do we get? So if we just scroll through, I'm not going to make any of them big, gang, because there's copyright issues, right? If we just scroll through here, though, it becomes very obvious. There are some images that are completely natural light. And there are some images that are clearly, done with strobes. You can see, actually, you can't see my mouse. I'm sorry. But there's a mix, right? So Juba, really, in terms of best way, that's a very dangerous question, because when you ask a question like that, what you're going to get is you're going to get a bunch of opinions from people based on their personal preference. That doesn't make it best, right? If I tell you my personal preference, that has absolutely no consideration for what kind of gear you're using, what's the setting that you're shooting in, what's the mood of the picture, what exactly is the environment, who is the subject, and that list goes on and on and on and on and on. If you've not worked with a lot of accessory lighting and off-camera flash and that kind of stuff yet, keep your life simple if you're just starting out and work with natural lighting. I don't care how much lighting you have. Like, obviously, guys, I shoot primarily in a studio, right? But the simple fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter where you shoot. If you don't learn how to use light, if you don't learn how to see light, you're not going to be producing, consistently good photographs, gang. You're just not, right? So I would encourage you not to overthink it. Keep it simple. I really would, okay? All right, from John here. I'm a newer photographer when it comes to being able to create a shot, not sports, natures, etc. But by nature, I'm not a creative person, but I would like to improve that. I usually have good technical skills and models. I currently shoot hoping for good shots, but often don't start with a vision of what I want other than good images. Is there a way to learn to create the visions? Well, John, actually, I would go back to the question that I answered for Terrence earlier today. Find pictures online that you like and start there. Like, literally, guys, I wish that more accomplished photographers, and I wish that more of these YouTube photographers, and when I say that, that was really snipey. So let me back up and explain, because I'm doing it on record here, so it's recorded, right? a lot of the YouTube photographers are younger photographers. And what that means is they don't have a lot of experience. 6 years, 10 years, 12 years. I'm sorry, that's not actually a lot of experience. Okay, there are indeed photographers on YouTube with 20, 30 years experience, and there's guys like me with way too much. Okay, and here I am with 40 plus years of experience, and I'm not the best photographer on YouTube. Wow, how about that, right? So, and that's why I focus on my experience. But I wish more of these photographers that are on YouTube and teaching would be honest about the fact that they use resources like Pinterest, like Instagram. They look at magazines. They look for ideas everywhere. And just the simple fact that they are putting YouTube videos out as often as they do, believe me, they are constantly looking for ideas to tweak and to change and to essentially steal. Steal the idea, but you make it your own. As long as you're making it your own, there is no harm, no foul, period, right? So, I would start, John, by looking for pictures that you like and say, I'd love to learn how to do that and break it down. I mean, just looking at any photograph, guys, there's a lot you can tell about how the picture was made, where the lights were placed, all that kind of stuff, if you pay close attention. You don't need a class in that. You need your eyes, and you need to actually pay attention to the details, meaning you don't look at it. You have to teach yourself to see what's in front of you, okay? All right, so Adrian, first time with you. Well, welcome. Only been doing photography for 2 years, so still learning. What are your thoughts on in-camera multiple exposures? Fun, really, really fun. Olympus has that feature. I know a couple other brands have that feature also. If you check out my Instagram feed, I've got a shot that I did recently, which was a portrait of a young man that was an in-camera multiple exposure. A lot of fun. For me, it's not something that I have a lot of use for often, but it's definitely a cool feature. I'm a big fan, kind of like the live composite shots, the light painting stuff that you guys have seen me done in the past. That's a feature that for Olympus cameras, it's actually designed for astrophotography. So when I became an Olympus shooter and I learned about that feature, it's like, I'm a portrait photographer. Why can't I use that? And so it was a matter of figuring out, well, how could I use it, right? And I was the first guy to start painting backgrounds for, portraits. And this stuff you're going to see me do in New York is going to take that concept of making a background for the portrait. I'm going to take it to a whole new level, okay? So I'm all about taking, features like that in cameras and trying to find ways to kind of repurpose them, make them unique, make them different. So yeah, I would encourage you, Adrian, go for it, have fun, okay? Alvin, quote, good artists copy, great artists steal. We've always been shameless about stealing great ideas, Steve Jobs. Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm always up for a good meme, and that is, I mean, if you're following a Steve Jobs concept, you really can't go wrong that much, right? You just can't. So let's see here. And all right, I did Troy's question about the tattoos. Let's see here. Eric Jennings, shooting family portraits in a few weeks. Photography is not my main job, but I enjoy it, and I want to do great work for the people that ask me. Without a lot of experience, how do I prep for the shoot? How do I get confident poses and directing the client? So the first thing, Eric, is if you're doing family portraits, I'm going to assume maybe you're doing them either like in a living room or you're going to do them in a park. So the first step would be go to that place. If you're going to do it in a living room with lighting, set up in your living room even. If you can't go to their living room, set up in your living room and practice. Have your family sit in as subjects. If you're going to shoot it in the park, go to the park. Take a couple friends with you. If it really matters to you, practice. Walk through it. If you're going to go outside and do the shot outside, you want to make sure that you go to the park the same time of the day. Same time of the day, and keep in mind that this time of year, the days are getting shorter by a minute every single day. The sun goes down earlier a minute every day, right? So factor that in, but you go to the park, early, and you practice with that lighting, and you see what's going to work. So hey, is the background that I want to use going to be well lit or not lit at all? And my subject, all that stuff, you work it out. Same with indoor lighting. Test it, you work it out, etc. For poses, go and Google the phrase family portrait poses. You will find thousands of them. 90% of those thousands you will look at and say, these look really cheesy. So you'll have to look through a lot of poses and you'll find ones that look really, really interesting. Find poses that involve the same number of family members as the family that you are about to go and shoot. put those poses on your cell phone. So while you're out there, you can grab the phone and you can simply say, you don't show them the phone, don't show them. But you don't have to lie either, right? You're just gonna look at them, you're gonna tell them, it's like, hey, I've got a couple pose ideas here. Okay, all right, cool. So now I wanna have you over here, I want you to do this, boom. And you know what you're doing. Honestly, that's where I would start. Don't overthink it. Don't go out and try to learn all kinds of stuff on posing. Don't start learning about C curves and S curves and all that stuff. Dumbest thing ever. Things like C curves and S curves, that was all dreamed up when people were skinny. People aren't skinny anymore. Most people now, if you put them in a C curve or an S curve pose, they look like a basketball with a head. It doesn't work, right? Sorry, I know that's insulting to some people, but that's just a fact. So, you know, the world evolves, photography evolves, techniques evolve. That crap, throw it away. It's old school. It doesn't work anymore. Because even if you get a skinny person and you try to do that, you're forcing them into a shape and a form that is going to have some kind of elegance to it, but it's going to be elegance from the 1940s. Good posing is simply relaxed body language. And then it's the arrangement of where are you placing the people. That's where doing that Google search will help you a lot. Okay, so I would encourage you start there. Okay, let's see here. Terrence, a follow-up to that question. I felt that posing is something that has to be learned in person. I admit that I could be wrong, but I've watched many posing videos, and the psychology behind it is more useful than the movements. Terrence, thank you. Yes, that's exactly the point, right? You can't learn posing in a book. You can't learn posing in video. You've got to do it. And most importantly, if you guys want something to learn, like if you struggle with posing, and if you struggle with communicating about posing, and if you want to learn something, if you feel that YouTube is your savior, go to YouTube and search body language, or how to understand body language, or how to read body language. You learn body language, you will understand posing from the reverse side. And it's going to be so much easier to say to the person, hey, I want you to sit on that stool. Are you going to sit on that chair? And you're going to be able to tell right out of the box that the body language is good, bad, or otherwise. And the simple fact is, if the body language works, it works. If it doesn't, you'll know what you're looking at and you'll be able to make changes, okay? Pose, when you say the word pose to somebody, that connotates stiffness. Don't move. That never looks good. It just simply doesn't, right? So yeah, I would encourage you to approach it that way, okay? All right, let's see here. Where are we at? Manny, hate when I see a photographer hold the camera with one hand looking at the LCD. Manny, I'm going to reserve all comment there. Many of you know exactly what I would say. Since we don't see that one particular photographer do it a whole lot anymore, it's gotten a little bit better. But yeah, there are photographers that are friends of mine that I have a lot of respect for that do that. And it drives me nuts. It infuriates me. Some of them are fellow YouTubers. It infuriates me because they're setting a horrible example. But hey, it is what it is, right? And at the end of the day, you know, what matters? You got the picture, you didn't get the picture, right? However, the fact of the matter is, holding that camera with one hand looking at the LCD, you are not going to be able to get consistently good results. You're just not. And the irony, well, no, I can't say that because I'll give away who it is, so I'll stop there. But D-Mac just dropped in to say hi on my way to Detroit via Houston, and I'll see you in New York next week. Awesome. Looking forward to it, man. We'll have to make this Photo Plus thing like an annual thing, right? Make sure you stop by the Olympus booth. Hopefully you'll be there for one of my talks. Let's see here. And scrolling on down. Life's beautiful. Regarding colors, isn't it also about some colors being part of those who are a warm tone as opposed to the other colors for those who are a cool tone? Well, yeah. I mean, again, and that's where, you know, cool is like the blues end of the spectrum. You know, the warms is the reds and that kind of stuff. It's all got to do. I'll Google it so that well, not next week. There's no TogChat next week. But I'll Google the information or I'll ask my wife. She's my psychology, my cognitive psychology Google. I will ask her and I will report that back to you guys. Okay. All right. Oh, hey, you know what? I forgot something. Just a quick pause. I want to show you guys this. Let me get that up on the screen here. I I started a new program. So little commercial, folks, all right? I'll only take a second. I shared this last week. Quite a few people signed up, which was actually very nice to see happen. And so far, I'm really loving, you're over here, sorry. I'm really loving the way this works. I started a new program. It's a mentoring program. I am going to share the link with you here in the chat window, okay? So that you guys can go read it for yourself. But it uses an app, iPhone or Android, okay? There are 4 mentoring programs that you can sign up for. So, literally as little as $5 a month, okay? So, we're talking $60 for a year. You guys will spend more than that at Starbucks. What that does is it gives you the ability to send me messages directly and ask me questions, so that if you are in the middle of planning a shoot and you're having a problem, you can ask a question. If you're in the middle of a shoot and you have a problem, you can ask a question. It also allows you access to my Friday Zoom chats. My Friday Zoom chats are where we use Zoom technology, Zoom rooms, with webcams, and we get together, we talk photography, we solve problems, we troubleshoot, we help people plan shoots. We're able to do screen shares. Frequently, I'll do little lighting demos here in the studio. All that's included. So I would encourage you to check it out, okay? You can sign up for the app, sign up for it for free. You don't actually get access to communicate until you commit to one of the levels. But we're about a week and a half in with this program so far. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. As an educator, for me, it's been great, because since you have a finite amount of questions every month, I'm finding that the people that are sending me questions now are sending me questions that are focused, they are concise. It allows me to really, really, truly help them solve problems. I really like it, because I'm not getting, like, what brand camera should I buy? Which is just a dumb question. And I'm getting questions that are like, hey, I'm about to do the shoot, and this is the camera, and this is the lens that I have, and I only have 2 lights, and I want to create a picture that looks like this, and they attach it in the text, but I don't quite understand how I can get that kind of soft lighting look with these 2 lights. Can you help me? With that information, I can give the person a whole freaking lighting lesson and actually help them accomplish what they're trying to do in this shoot that's coming up. So I would encourage you guys, check it out, consider it. As I said, $5 a month is the beginning level, and you can cancel at any time. So, you could stay in it long term, or you can do it for a month, 2 months, and you're out. Whatever you want, something for you to consider. But I do hope to see you in the community. So far, it's actually been working out really, really well. Okay? All right. So let's head on back here. All right. So I got Terrence. Chris, great live chat tonight. Thank you, Chris. You're over here now. God, see, I use 2 cameras, and then I need to put a light on them, right? Like to get your take on a portrait lens for micro four thirds. Like to hear about the 45-1.2, the 45-1.8, the 75-1.8. So I don't have the 45-1.8, so I can only give you personal experience information on the 45-1.2 and the 75-1.8. And of course, we're talking M.Zuiko lenses here, right? Olympus lenses. The 45-1.2 is definitely my favorite. That's like my go-to. I do still use the 75mm quite a bit. In fact, today, the shots that I did, I happened to do with 75mm just because it worked out for the combination of the subject and the backgrounds that I was using, etc. The 45-1.8, everything I've heard about it, everything I have read about it, outstanding lens. Obviously, it's much less expensive than the 45-1.2. The big difference is, of course, the 45-1.8 is not weather sealed. It's not one of the pro lenses. But believe me, in terms of sharpness, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, my first introduction to Olympus glass was with Panasonic camera bodies for video. And even then, using the cheaper, what Olympus calls, I shouldn't say cheaper, but they're what they call the premium lenses, right? So they're not the expensive pro lenses. Even using those lenses for video now, I was blown away by how sharp those lenses were. So I can tell you, Chris, from a quality standpoint, you will not be disappointed. But 45, definitely top of my list for focal length for portraits. 75 is the close second and gets used frequently. So. Psycho Phil, I do a lot of light painting, and I keep hearing that live composite mode on Olympus cameras. How does this compare to bulb mode on other cameras? Well, Psycho Phil, honestly, it doesn't compare because it's so much better. So let me just give you one quick example here. I'll switch back over. This shot is done with live composite, okay? This shot, Psychophil, was shot on stage in a trade show hall for Olympus. In fact, what I'll do is I will, whoops, let me get the right link here. I thought I had the right link, so here, let me switch this back. I'm gonna share with you the video link to the video of me taking that picture so that you can watch that. In fact, here, this is the whole article and the video is on this page, okay? So basically, what live composite is a long exposure. I generally, with the stuff that I do, only use half-second exposures, but you can go much longer. And what the camera's doing is it's taking that half-second exposure over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, all in the same frame. So after the first exposure, after the first half-second exposure, all it's doing for in each subsequent half-second exposure, it's looking for new light, light that it has not recorded yet, okay? And then at the end of it, which, by the way, when I say at the end of it, you can do this for up to 3 hours. This is a feature that was designed for astrophotography, not for portraits, okay? At the end of it, it takes all those images, it does noise reduction, and it delivers to you one raw file, not a JPEG like a lot of cameras would do, a raw file. It's amazing. So I've also got a video on YouTube. Let me see if I can find you that, that video here so that you can see how I do the portraits with live composite. This one is done from in the studio, but let me see if I can track this down for you and I'll share it. Whoops, that's not what we want. Bear with me one sec here. There it is. So I'm going to share another link for you here. And this one's all about the live composite stuff too. So check those out. I think that will help you out and make it a little bit clearer than me trying to kind of rush through it here. Okay. Let's see. Brett Day, yes, but sharpness is only one part of it. Distortion control, CA control, color rendition all play a part in making great lenses. And Olympus has it all, Brent. Like, really? Of course that's a big part of it. But the fact of the matter is, all those things you're saying, Brett, I'm not going to lie to you, that's pixel peeper crap, right? Because it just is. Every lens in the market today is more than adequate for that stuff, right? People are getting way too deep in that crap, okay? And Brett, I know you write for one of the blogs. But this is the kind of stuff where, I'm going to tell you honestly, Brett, the blogs are doing a disservice to the photo community because they are making people paranoid beyond all belief. There should be a disclaimer on every one of these blogs. You don't need to worry about half the stuff that we write about because you just don't, right? Let's let people get out there and take pictures. At the end of the day, all right, I don't care what brand we want to talk about. Panasonic, Fuji, Olympus, Nikon, Canon, Sony, Tamron, Tokina, Sigma. Let's pick a brand. Ain't nobody watching this show tonight, yourself included, Brett, that is going to notice the difference of any one of those features that you mentioned in any of the pictures that you routinely shoot. Unless you're going to pixel peep. And unless you're going to go bench test. Who does that? A lot of people pixel peep because of YouTube and because of photo blogs. Sorry, man. But, you know, again, let's keep it real, right? People need to focus on photography. Let's have some fun. Let's create good images. Go to Google. Type in the phrase in Google, iconic photographs. 99% of what comes up would fail the qualifications that you just put for a good lens. It would fail it miserably. But yet, these are images that we look up to, images that have withstood the test of time, that we say are amazing, incredible images. So again, make it about photography. Just saying, okay? Let's see here. So we got that one. Oh, am I actually all caught up? I might finish 2 or 3 minutes early. Oh my God. Let's see here. Todd Strong, so you've been working with the 45-1.8. Cool. Yeah, it's a great lens. I mean, I don't know that from personal experience. I've heard lots of people talk about the 45-1.8. Obviously, it's a bargain price compared to the 45-1.2. But of course, then it's, you know, it's also not weather sealed. So, Mark Faust, how do you get the ripples out of background paper? you don't let them get there in the first place. Honestly. So the first thing that you do about that, here, I don't know if I can actually get this up and running tonight because I didn't set it up in advance. Let's see if it'll connect right away. If it connects, I can show you. So the first thing you do, Mark, I'm going to switch you guys over. You're going to be on my phone here, so I'll apologize in advance for the bouncing around. Okay, let's, whoops, bear with me. Unlock that. All right, you're on my phone. So Mark, here's how I store my paper backgrounds. Notice they're vertical. Okay, so as long as they're vertical, they are not going to ripple. But what you want to do, Mark, here, let me just turn that off, okay, before I cause myself all kind of other issues, all right? I'm going to get you another video link here, Mark, really quick. Let's see here. I have a whole video about working with paper seamless backdrops and how to keep them in good shape, how to make sure that they don't ripple, don't kink, all that kind of stuff. So let's see here. There you go. There's that video there. So check that one out. It will help you a lot. So Mark Mathosian, just had a chance to get online. Did I see the specs on a new Mark III? I don't know what you're talking about. Mark III what? Help me out. Sorry. So let's see here. Demarius, got a couple minutes left to try and get all these in. How do you feel about the Sigma 105 for macro for headshot photography? I started with the 85, but I'm looking for more depth of field and sharpness. This is a bad idea. So Demarius, I don't have any personal experience with that lens, but I can tell you some basic things. Number one, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using macro lenses for headshot work. When I was a full-frame shooter, back when I was a Nikon guy, my go-to lens, I talk about this in a lot of my videos, my go-to lens for portraiture was the 100mm Tokina f2.8 macro lens, okay? Less than $400 on Amazon.com. Like, it's just an amazing price. Sharpest lens you can find for a full-frame camera, period. It's an incredible lens. I really like the 100 and 105mm focal length. I just think it's awesome. I don't have any specific experience with the Sigma 105, but I will tell you this, Damaris, just so you don't get misled by some of the idiots that you find on the internet. You will read that people will tell you, oh, a macro lens is way too slow. The autofocus is way too slow. So here's where their stupidity comes in play. You're photographing headshots. Your people aren't moving around. You don't need the autofocus to be lightning fast. The reason why they perceive it to be slower is because a macro lens, if it doesn't have a limiter on it, has a longer range that it has to focus because it's capable of focusing inches away, but then it's got to focus all the way out to infinity. So it takes it longer to run that distance, hence slower. So macro lenses aren't actually any slower to focus. They simply have more range that they have to cover. But you're shooting headshots, so it doesn't matter. So if you have it, then I would say great lens. If you don't have it already, I would encourage you, look at the Tokina 100mm f2.8. It's called the Pro D, capital D lens. Just awesome lens, really, really awesome lens. Okay. All right, another one here. Hey, Ken, how you doing? Michael, wedding shoots. What are your thoughts on sharing pictures as you shoot on Wi-Fi where everyone can see in their cell phones? I mean, Michael, at first pass, so obviously I'm not a wedding guy, right? So let's start there. But at first pass, that causes me to pause. Obviously, I'm trying to think it through here. The reason why it causes me to pause is just doing what you're saying by itself, at face value, period, I would argue is a horrible idea. However, and everybody, just so you know, if you're not looking in the chat window, Michael did add some photographers pushing this as a big seller and teaching it. Great. Now, so let me finish my statement. Just sharing the pictures right away, horrible idea. Sharing the pictures right away with a way to monetize that. some type of way, maybe there's an app available where guests at the wedding can see the pictures right away on the iPhone, and then they can order prints that they'll receive in a week or so and pay for it right then and there. Capitalizing on the emotion of the moment to make sales, that, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yes. Okay. But just to do it to be cool, no. I actually would say that's a horrible idea, because that means you're showing unprocessed images. You're not showing your best work that way. You're just being quick. So as long as there is a revenue stream that flows from it, then I would say, yeah, like that could be pretty cool. But there's got to be a revenue stream tied to it, Michael. And if that's the case, then yeah, go for it. Mark Mathiasen, sorry about that. OMD EM5 Mark III, never heard of it, man. What do you expect to hear from me? All I know is what's in the rumor sites. I've told you guys many, many times before. Visionaries, we don't find out about this stuff. They look at me. I'm like on YouTube running my mouth, right? They don't trust me with this stuff. If there's a camera coming out like they say there is in the rumor sites, I would expect maybe I'll get to see it at Photo Plus, but I have no official news. I mean, I simply don't. So all I know is what Olympus has told us, and what Olympus has told us is that with this year being the 100th anniversary, the EM1X that came out early in the year is not the only big release. There's more stuff that they've promised us. And we're in October, so I mean, we're kind of running out of time, and I'm sure they weren't lying, but I sincerely don't know. Oh, we had the TG6, right? The TG6 was actually, that was a big deal. I love that little camera. But I don't doubt that there is a Mark III coming, Mark, because the rumor sites are usually pretty, on point. But literally, I'll find out about it when pretty much everybody else finds out about it. Okay, and that's no different with any of the camera brands. I mean, there's too much money to be lost if information gets out there and it's confirmed and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. All right, gang. So, 7:32. I am over time. Thank you. It was great to have all of you here tonight. So you guys know the drill, right? We've been here for 92 minutes. That means you owe me 184 minutes. And I'm going to be tough teacher this week. You owe me 184 minutes times 2, because I'm not going to be here next week. So we're taking a week off next week. No TogChat. Make sure, though, seriously, please, if you're not doing it already, follow me on Instagram. In fact, here, let me get you guys the links here. Make sure that you are following me on Instagram. Make sure that you are following me on Facebook, all that good stuff, because I will be posting a ton of stuff from Photo Plus. My Instagram handle is simply @Joe Edelman. There it is. It's in the chat window there. But so you get a break next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks before I head out to Seattle. And you guys know the drill by now. Please go pick up that camera, shoot, and of course, whatever you do, don't forget.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.